Are you ready? Let's go. Ready?
Ready.
Yeah, ready when you are.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Holden Shepherd, Heidi Anderson, Jan Latter, Alison Patterson, welcome to my little show.
Why do you call it a little chat show?
Jan Nichols, Sam Eichen, Annabelle Smith, Donna Mazza, Rebecca Watson, Jonelle Fraser, Tracy Jacobson, Adam Wallace, Monique Mulligan, Matt Glover, Karen Young. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Welcome to my show. Today started out as a bit of a gloomy old day. It was overcast, a bit of smoke in the air, and a bit of a melancholy. But I've just chatted to the most amazing lady, Brigid Lowry, and she's just lifted my spirits, and I think you'll see that too once you watch the interview. Now, before we tell any more about Brigid, my book, Being Wildly Kind, Finding the Magical Power Inside, is now out and available. So grab it from your local bookshop, or you can get signed copies from me, or go to Booktopia to grab it. And also, Here I Am course for kids is always available and going great guns. Go to the web address, my web address below, to enroll into that, because it's doing some great stuff with kids. Also, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you get a notification directly to inbox. Now, just a little bit more about Brigid Lowry. She has just released this book, which is A Year of Loving Kindness to Myself and Other Essays. It is just a beautiful, it's a meander, it's a walk, it is just absolutely fantastic. Now, Brigid Lowry, she's got a master's in creative writing. She's written 8 award-winning young adult books, and she's a Zen student, and we talk about Buddhism and stuff a fair bit in here, so it's going to be quite interesting. And she's also a creative writing teacher. So sit back. You're going to absolutely love this interview with Brigid Lowry. Let's get to know her a little better. Brigid Lowry, thank you so much for coming on my show. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. I'm good, thank you. I'm good. It's good to see you.
I am really honoured to have you on my show, and I'm actually even more honoured that you washed your hair for me today.
I know that's the ultimate tribute to Josh. Your listeners don't know this, but I thought it was on the phone. So Josh really kindly gave me some extra time to wash my hair. I hope everyone's impressed.
I can feel its cleanliness from here. Now, congratulations on your new book that's recently come out, A Year of Loving Kindness to Myself and Other Essays. Now, I've been reading this over the last few weeks, dipping in and dipping out of it, and it is like I know you now. I've got this intimate. It's like you and I have taken a walk together in this fabulous garden, and we've just been looking at things, discussing things, and looking at the wonder of life. And is that your intention of this book?
Well, yeah. I mean, thank you for a start, and I'm really, really so glad you liked it and have found something in there. And yeah, friends have said to me, I hear your voice. Also, just going back to what you said, you know way too much about me now. So, but that's the price one pays. But yeah, I did put a lot of myself into that book, and I hope that the mixture of sort of Buddhist wisdom, personal growth and psychology, plus my own sort of journey would be a good combo. But long answer here, really. When I started that book, I had a sort of idea for it, that it was going to be these essays that started with on, and then I started writing some essays that all began with on, and then there was a death. It's mentioned in the book. My beautiful niece in New Zealand died, and I went over there, and she had a very special leaving this earth. And then when I came back, not because I was deep in grief and couldn't write, I sort of lost my way with the book. And then beautiful Georgia Richter and Claire at the Fremantle Press, who had been encouraging me, took a look at what I had, and they gave me some direction. And that's when I did the longer piece, The Year of Loving Kindness to Myself piece. And so this book sort of just ambled along. And I personally, I am an Eeyore. I always go, oh yeah, I don't think it's any good. I don't even know why I'm doing it. I don't think this book's going to be much. And so it's always really surprising when after so long, it turns into something and people like it. And also this is boasting that it just became Apple with their ebooks, book of the month. And Claire pointed out to me that the chances of that happening are about 1 in 3,000. And it's
Whoa.
really good prestige. And the thing that they write a little review, and the review was so, you could tell that whoever in America read all these books and decided to put my one up for book of the month, they really, really liked it. And they really, really responded to it on a personal level. And also they said I have luminescent prose. So therefore I am happy with my book. Luminescent
prose.
Isn't that nice?
Actually, that describes it really beautifully. Even I struggle to find the words with it. I mean, look, there's so many questions I want to ask you, Brigid, and there's something about through the book. There's a certain melancholy. There's a certain, I don't know. It's the not something missed, but there's a melancholy about it, and it's a deliciousness. And I really fell into that. And then I got to the bit where you talked about sadness and allowing yourself to be sad. And this is one of the human characteristics of being sad. And I went, that was it. And because I've read a little bit this morning before our chat, and out here where I'm living out in beautiful Loudon in the bottom of the Ferguson Valley, it was overcast, there was smoke haze, and there was a bit of a chill to the air, and just added to that whole feeling. So what I was reading to what I was feeling to what the weather was doing was just all coming together in this beautiful synchronicity of, and as you say, can you just be with that? Can you be in that? And I just love that. Anyway, but I want to talk a bit about Buddhism, Zen Buddhism. What drew you to that initially?
Okay. Well, before we go there, can I just respond to the sad part? Because I think that's really interesting what you said. So that to me is really important philosophically. I always write down lines. And the line that I wrote down, it was from a Japanese haiku poet woman a long time ago. She talks about the sad beauty. And I think that we're all in it together. Is it John? It's either Dylan or I think it's Dylan who said, I'm going to get this wrong. As soon as we're born, we know we're going to die. Like he that's not busy being born is busy dying. Being alive is wonderful and also tragic. Like we're here and beautiful things happen, wonderful things happen, and terrible things happen. And in the end, we all get carried away in a box. So for me, like some people are not, that doesn't enter into them. Like I've had 2 husbands, right? And my second husband, Paul, was just this cheerful, optimistic fellow that never bothered him. He was just got on and did things and everybody liked him. He did his job. He loved fishing. He liked red wine now and again. He could watch something like Rwanda or Syria on the telly. And it wasn't that he was unfeeling, but it didn't just, he didn't stop watching it and feel a terrible melancholy for the world. Well, some of us do. Some of us are more tuned in to human suffering. And we see the nuances, like even people who absolutely find the right person and have a wonderful life together, in the end, one of them will die, unless they both go down in the same plane. That was the thing I realised when I went to New Zealand for Amber. What a beautiful thing, and what a beautiful husband. You'll never get over it. Like watching your beautiful wife that you've had a child with, who's been the mother to your stepchildren, 5 years. He watched her have brain cancer and then she died. So there is a sadness in the world. And I certainly think it's worth not sinking into and being like a sad sack the whole time. But at least if we can be honest about our human feelings, and that sort of brings me in a way to Buddhism. So I didn't get into Zen Buddhism in the beginning. I actually got into the other, like I'm in 2 sorts, as if there are Catholics and Quakers, right? So Zen's one, and Vipassana or insight, which is based on the Theravada, which is like orange-robed monks, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Sri Lanka, that one. Zen being a Japanese sort of form of Buddhism. So I got into the orange-robed one because I was basically drugged out hippie girl, living in Sydney, working for Dr. Bernardo's, living with my Kiwi friends in Paddington and Glenmore Road, as you do, and going out to the musicians club and smoking a bit of weed in the weekend and, you know, eating Lebanese food and drinking whiskey and talking bullshit. And it was a good life, but there was
Sounds fine to me.
Yeah, it sounds fine to many people. However, because we're going off wide here, both my parents were alcoholics. They were very messy.
We'll also get back to this because childhood trauma plays a big role. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'd also been in a community in New Zealand with my architect brother-in-law and his wife, my sister, and all the people in that community, the Moehau community, which is still there, a beautiful part of Coromandel. It seemed to me that those that were still doing the grow dope and smoke a lot of it year in, year out were kind of stagnant. That's a judgment, but it was like, yeah, you're cool, but you're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
the
it's
ones
an observation.
that I thought was, the thought was sort of admirable were the ones that had got into Tibetan Buddhism, and they were sort of going off to Nepal and starting centers and stuff. And so there I was in Sydney, came out of the movies late at night, went into this bookshop, late night bookshop. I can still see it. And I read in the Earth Garden about a 10-day Vipassana retreat at this place called Wat Buddha Dharma. And I kind of thought, yeah, I should get into that. And I went to this place and it was such a nightmare. It's way isolated in the middle of the Darrick National Park. And I was so restless and I so couldn't meditate that I went up to a guy in the car park and said to him, can I get a ride back to Sydney with you? Like, I don't think I'm into this. And he said, oh, I came in on my bicycle. So I couldn't get a ride back to Sydney with him. So I stayed, and I, funnily enough, ended up getting married to a lovely guy who lived there who basically, we didn't even know each other that well, but he decided, I don't want to be a monk. Brigid's quite nice. And everyone was saying to him, well, you know, get with Brigid. And he came courting me in Sydney, and he was a lovely guy. But yeah, as I said, we hadn't had the traditional long courtship, but I married him and we had a kid, and I lived there for 7 years. So that's how I got into Buddhism. I completely
how did you,
sober.
I mean, I'm sorry, Brigid, to interrupt you, but it's like you didn't have a gentle introduction. You did a Vipassana retreat, and they're one of the hardest things that a human being can do.
Well, yeah, but even, this is interesting, within the Vipassana tradition, there are different lineages, different teachers. And the ones that most people go to, or some people, are called Goenka. And a lot of people go to them, it sounds terrible, because they're free. You just can go to them and you pay them what you feel. E.g., if you were a backpacker, it might be nothing. Yep. And they are boot camp. Like, they are really tough.
That's the 10-day silent retreat, isn't it?
Yeah, but there are many different 10-day silent retreats. So it depends on the teacher. So the 10-day silent retreat I went on wasn't quite as boot camp as that. I have in my life been on some boot camp ones, but my first one, it wasn't that it was as rigorous as that. It was just, there I was right out in the bush. You've got no TV, no radio. Well, there weren't phones in those days, nothing to read. And whatever you've got in your mind, which most people have, restlessness and agitation and busyness, that's what you get to see. And it's like all your life you've been pretending, yeah, I don't have feelings. I don't care that my father committed suicide. I'm cool. I'll just have another glass of wine. And then you get that, none of that. And you're just left with yourself. And like, there'd be no retreat where people didn't want to leave, where they didn't go to the teacher and go, no, this is not for me. Can I go home? And the teacher, if they're wise, says to them, yeah, you can go home. Go home tomorrow. Like, give it 24 hours, and then you might have gone into a calm place, because your mind starts to settle down, and you will probably find some tranquility, and you'll get meaning out of the talks. But yeah, they're no picnic.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that's a steep introduction to it. So where did you go to from there? Transition from that to Zen Buddhism? So
I lived there for 7 years, and lots of wonderful teachers from all around the world came, and it was an amazing time. We were sort of like hippies and building houses and looking after kids and running retreats. And also, so some of the famous teachers like Joseph Goldstein was one who came, and I was the cook. And at the end, he put his arm around me, because everyone loves the cook. And he said, sit every day. It was like a curse. Joseph Goldstein told me to meditate every day. And I often try and get a message to him and say, tell Joseph Goldstein I've been sitting every day. But then, to cut the long story a bit short, we shifted to Perth after a while to live as a family, me and my husband and child. And sadly, that lovely, lovely person the marriage didn't really last. And then I married a Kiwi. And with that, there was sort of a bit of a transition spiritually, emotionally, every other way. And some of the people I'd known at the Buddhist Society here in Western Australia, orange-robed ones, had got into the Zen group here in WA. And they said, oh, we like Zen. It's like a Japanese ballet. It's very, beautiful and a bit rigorous, but quite wonderful. And so I just kind of went, oh, my friends went to the Zen group. Why don't I check it out? And it was sort of like a fresh start with the new husband. Like he hadn't been Buddhist, but so together we started sitting with the Zen group. And there's a wonderful man, you may have heard of him, called Ross Bollitter. He plays the ruined piano. He's quite a famous Perth musician, but he was he's a Roshi now, he's a teacher. But it was just great because all the people were sort of university type people, and we'd do the meditation, and then we'd go to Northbridge and drink coffee. And it was just refreshing and interesting to me. And then I started doing the Zen retreats, which are a lot more rigorous. Like on a Vipassana retreat, if it's meditation and you don't feel like going and you go and have a nap, no one really cares. On Zen, if you don't come to sit, they come and get you. Like there's no, I don't want to, I feel a bit lazy. It's kind of like a bit samurai, but you get up really early and you be there and you do as instructed. And it's a wonderful discipline, but again, it's a notch up in terms of commitment.
So how does the Zen tradition now, how does it inform your practice? Do you have a daily practice now?
Yeah, I do have a daily practice. And as I said, both of those traditions are still mine. I still go on Vipassana retreats and Zen retreats. And I still, at night, I listen to Buddhist talks. I listen to both. I'm probably a bit more leaning towards the Vipassana at the moment, only because most of those teachers talk, like in Zen, it's quite classical, and they might have a Zen koan, and it's about what Tung Shan said in the 13th century. In Vipassana, a lot of the Western teachers who went to India and went to Thailand and were forest monks or studied in India with famous teachers, they're a lot more speaking in plain language. So they'll speak about anger and sorrow and anxiety, and quite a few of them are quite engaged, particularly in America right now, with social justice issues, with let's not let this be just for white privileged people. How do we include diversity and train teachers who are of color and transgender and la la la. So it's a fairly, modern's not the right word, but it meets me at a heart level if I listen to a talk about compassion or
it's more relevant. I must admit, because I studied Buddhism for a few years, and very much your traditional Mahayana, middle way Buddhist meditation, Tibetan, and I found that it was very much they had passed on the knowledge, so that the current monks were still very, even though they may have been Australian and they'd gone over to Tibet and they'd spent 20 years there and they came back and started teaching, they were still very stuck or taught only from many years ago. It wasn't relevant for a modern society. And I found it very hard to sort of incorporate what they were saying into how my life was now, if you know what I mean. It's sort of like,
I know exactly what you mean.
Talk about what's happening with me now. How do I relate this to that? Whereas, and look, there's some absolutely stunning and amazing teachers out there. Venerable Robina Curtin, absolutely amazing lady, powerhouse, absolutely. And I've seen her talk a couple of times, and she is just uncompromising. And for that, she can relate what she's being taught, related to you in what's happening now in today's society, because she's still immersed in it as opposed to being in a monastery. And so that I can totally understand where having the teachings being in a way that we can connect with for the modern mind.
Yeah, that's so important. And people like Robina, she's doing it in the world, and she's in the prisons, and she's speaking in a language anyone can understand. But it's very individual, isn't it? Because people find, I have a friend who goes, oh yes, my Mahamudra practice, my Green Tara practice, to them, it's a value. So it was one thing I've learned. I was in a Buddhist discussion group where we meet every month, and it's so individual. You can have 15 Buddhists in a room, and some are Goenka students, and some are mix and match, and some are specifically Zen. And it's a rich path. It's a really rich path, and I feel very lucky that I can be. I wouldn't say a bowerbird because that makes it sound a bit flighty, but that you can find what meets your own heart and mind and practice it.
Yeah, and you know, I remember one of the teachings that we went to in the Buddhist monk said he warned against cherry picking from what you felt, you know, from different aspects of religions and spirituality. Don't cherry pick. And that's what really put me off, because half of the things I didn't fit with me. So, but something over here did, something over there did. So, you know, the religiosity of Buddhism sort of kind of it put me off in a way, but the actual fundamental philosophy ended up being my baseline, my grounding for how I view the world. And I think it's a great lens to see things.
It's interesting what you said, because that used to be what they'd say. They'd say, dig a hole 10 feet deep. Don't dig 10 holes 1 foot deep. And I suppose that means don't be, crystal healing today and, you know, something tomorrow. But I think there's a danger in saying only do what I say. Like for me, eclecticism. And when Jack Cornfield gives a talk, he always says, take what's of value to you and leave the rest. And I just... I give myself permission to have that freedom, to listen to teachers in all lineages and know, because apparently the Buddha said, don't do anything because someone told you, don't do anything because you read it, don't do anything except if you know it to be true. And that's why I put that line in the book of Gil Fronsdale saying, if the Buddha and all the teachers said to you, okay, it was all bullshit, sorry, you know, whatever we told you, forget about it. What have you figured out? Have you figured out that having some quiet time every day is of value to you? Do that. Have you figured out that you feel better when you're kind to people and put your bullshit worrying down now and again? Like, it's really our own path, isn't it? And we are cherry picking. It might be just the man on the street who says an interesting thing to you. Like, the world is very rich with
exactly.
teachers.
And I think that's what one of the things that comes out in your book is the living with openness and wonder, because you don't know where little joys, little surprises will come from. Now,
indeed,
in the book, you touch on your own childhood and the childhood trauma that you had. How has Zen Buddhism or your faith in Buddhism, how has that helped you as an adult with that trauma?
Well, I think that's why I got into the whole Dharma thing, because it was the first philosophy or idea system, or whatever you want to call it, that actually met the fact that there is great human suffering. It wasn't just that my parents were heavy drinkers and reasonably neglectful, although I think I do say in the book there was a lot of good things they gave me. They really encouraged me to the intellect and to reading and to the arts and to hospitality and, you know, many, many good things. But there were other tragedies too. Like my sister I have 3 sisters. They're a lot older than me. And my older sister had a little child called Kirsten. So I was the auntie, even though I was like 5 and Kirsty was 2.
Oh, wow.
And Kirsty got cancer and died. And so that was a very early introduction to death. Like, okay, there's beautiful little Kirsty riding her tricycle. Now she's not here anymore. So those ideas that I met in Buddhism, they're with me now. How do we stay alive and happy, given that everything's changing? Even if my ducks are in a row, even if my hair's clean and I've got money in the bank and people like me, there's still COVID in India. There's still Myanmar. There's still someone's friend who's in hospital with 4th stage cancer. Like, we are deep in it and we're all in it together. So we have to live as happily as we can without pretending that there isn't human suffering. And so that's where the Buddhist ideas plus personal growth, you know, psychology and those things, it's like a rich toolbox of how how to get by, basically.
Mm,
Some people
mm.
don't get by. They just give up in the end. They just go too hard.
Yeah, look, and because you also talk a lot about anxiety in the book, and that hits home because I was diagnosed with having generalized anxiety a couple of years ago, and I didn't even realize I had it. I just thought this is how everyone lived, sitting on the edge of their seat, tense, ready to fire off at any moment, and I had not made the connection with that's how I felt with what happened in my childhood. And when I did make the connection, I go, oh right, oh okay, gotcha. So how do I live now as a person with this anxiety? And the way you talk about it in the book is really refreshing. It's sort of making friends with it. Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. And first step, how lucky that we figure out this is what it is. What you said really resonated. I read someone else, it was someone like Nikki Gemmell, I don't think it was her, but who exactly like you thought, this is how everyone is. Everyone wakes up with dread every day. Everyone's terrified they're going to be late, and it really, fucks up their day,
Yeah.
etc. And then you realize, no, this is a thing, and there are causes, and there are ways I can deal with it, and that is very soothing. And I think I do try and say in the book, it's not like you just get it. Okay, got that sorted. On I go, no anxiety now. Every day we're going to have to go, okay, what's happening? How am I feeling? What's my body doing? And what do I need? Am I overloading myself? Am I drinking too much tea and eating too much sugar? Like, we're making choices every night. So some nights, this is just my own personal thing, the absolutely best thing I can do is watch a couple of episodes of Friends, right? It's funny, it's cheerful, why not? But on other nights, if that would be the worst thing to do, would be just like, I'm going to watch TV and ignore, I might be better to go for a beautiful walk around the lake. So we're making choices about I can remember this in a swimming pool in Bali, this guy that I was talking to, he and his wife were in the swimming pool, and he said, it's some famous person saying everyone should be their own physician. And that really went in. It's like, we're our own guru. Like, you can read books, you can go to a shrink, you can but in the end you have to figure out, what is my life and how am I going to deal with it? And I sort of allude to this a bit in the book, but I had when my second marriage ended and I'd been living in New Zealand with my New Zealand husband, it all ended very suddenly. And I came back to Perth and I actually had don't want to go into too much detail, but a really tough year of what we'd call mental illness, probably like huge depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's where I figured out I have to be really in charge of how I'm going to be well. Of course, it's good to have a good clinical psychologist. Of course, go on the meds if you need them. Of course, give up the grog if it's really, sending you into dark places.
Yep.
But every day is going to be like, okay, what's my day going to be? And how am I going to find the fun and look after myself really well and make choices about, work, and don't take on too much? Because what I found for myself is stress has a really big correlation with anxiety and depression. So I have realized, in one way, being a workaholic and always having things to do gets you away from your feelings. In another way, if you do too much and you never listen to your body and you don't rest and you look after everyone else but yourself, your anxiety might be going up. So what I'm saying is, it's a daily dance. It's not like you get a solution. It's like a daily dance.
And that's, I think, is the thing that people, whether they want it or not, but it's like people want that instant cure, that quick fix, like fix my anxiety, whatever. And that's where I suppose medicine comes in. Take a pill for this, take a pill for that. But I like the way you said that. It's a dance. You're constantly balancing, and the thing is that can be mentally tiring as well. Trying to balance between what am I thinking, what am I feeling? I need to let go. I need to just be in the moment. And then the next minute, your brain's firing off again, and you realize you've taken on too much work, and you go, well, why have I taken on too much work? What am I hiding from? What am I escaping? What am I not wanting to feel? And then you go, it's all right, go back into that feeling, allow it. And then this cycle happens. You're getting an insight into how my brain works, aren't you, Brigid?
I so am. And it works a lot like my brain. Interesting that. But also something that I've come to is there's two, for me, and maybe for you, overthinking it. Like really, it's very, very simple. Back to the body, put your feet on the ground, feel, get it, you know, like there's only ever one moment, right? This is it, this one. And a lot of our thinking, one of the Buddhist teachers said 90% of it's unnecessary. You know, like you make a plan and then you go over and over the plan, or something happened. Like, I'll just give you a stupid example. The other day I went to my son's. I always take them some food, him and his wife and his kids. He was away. He wasn't coming back till 8 o'clock, right? I take this lovely food. I said to my daughter-in-law, shall I put Sam's food on a plate or in a box? She said, I'll put it in a box because he might have eaten on the plane. So I'd actually made a recipe. I never make a recipe. It was Jamie Oliver's roast cauliflowers and some other things. I was rather proud of this. Put it in the box, said goodbye to the kids. It's always a bit chaotic, you know, things happening. I'm a bit tired. I've been looking after small children. Get home, open my bag of cooking shit. There's my son's dinner. I brought it home by mistake, my son's dinner. And it's not that big a deal, right? I text my daughter-in-law, sorry, I brought home the wrong thing. And she goes, ha ha, we were just looking in the fridge for that. So they had plenty of other food, right? They had plenty of other food. How long did it take me to let go of that? Ages. I went through this whole thing about, you're an idiot. You're meant to be a meditator. You're meant to have focus. Oh no, I cooked him that. It was really hard, but overthinking it. And in the end, I just had to go, it's done, Brigid. It is done. Like, how much mental energy are you going to spend on something that's done? And it was just a funny thing. When you cook with love and you want to look after your grown-up son, they would have forgotten about it in an instant. They'd have thought, oh, I either leave my water bottle there or take the wrong thing home. But yeah, we overthink things. And so punishing yourself for, I didn't say goodbye to so-and-so at the party, or I shouldn't have, forget about it.
That is me through and through. And I've had to, you know, I sit there and argue with myself and have that argument that you were saying, like, let it go. They've moved on. They don't care. It's like, whatever. And I'm going, yeah, but I'm still a bad person. And you can instantly feel that inner 5-year-old child has just got in trouble by their parents for doing something. And you go, I'm a bad kid. And you have to try and separate yourself from that. But yet it's so true.
It's tricky, but it's good what you said, because we have insight. The fact that you see that, and the fact that I could see my angsting about the thing that had happened, that's the first step, isn't it? To go, okay, I've got some insight here. That's not helpful to me. And then very gently, as Anne Lamott said, treat yourself like your most mentally ill relative. You go, like if it was, do you have kids, by the way?
No.
Do you have any little children? Okay, we'll just pretend it's little Josh, Josh, who's 4. You wouldn't say to him, you idiot child. You would say, oh, you know, in the best of all possible worlds, we would be kind. We say, never mind, honey, it's okay. You are doing the best you can. You are a good person.
And I get that totally. And because all the kids' books that I write are all from my 8-year-old self. But it's when you're suddenly wrapped up in this role of being an adult and you forget to go, oh, man, there's this little 8-year-old kid in here who just needs to be loved and nurtured and told he's fine the way he is and he's wonderful. Yeah. Why would I talk badly to him? And you have all these little layers upon layers. And I love what you say about stopping, allowing yourself to be back in the moment, to ground yourself. I mean, look, all the teachers I read, you know, Eckhart Tolle, they all say the exact same thing. And they're all going, nothing is bad is going to happen because you stopped having that thought. Because you're suddenly worried. If I don't worry about this, something bad's going to happen. So I've got to keep worrying about it. And then you go, okay, I'll let it go and I'll breathe and I'll just sit in the garden, go talk to the flowers for a little bit or something like that. And then you do that and you go, oh, actually, I feel really good because you've put space between those thoughts. And you go, okay, well, I saw those. What's really me? Is it really me just looking at the flowers, just being aware? Well, maybe that is the really delicious part of me that I really like, as opposed to this neurotic nervous wreck one.
Yeah.
But then you got to get to that bit. Oh, I don't deserve to be grounded. I don't deserve that. And you go, oh my God. And you go in these circles and these circles. So that's why I love when you just said, and you say it in the book quite often, bring yourself back. It's giving yourself permission. And that's that loving kindness thing, isn't it?
It true is. And also something I read this week and wrote down, which, as we know, we've heard it all before and all the wise ones say it, but it was a reminder to me, the feeling, we're not guilty of our feelings. They come. We don't say, I'm going to feel anxious. I'm going to feel bad. Why don't I feel terrible now? Why don't I have some childhood trauma? These things happen for reasons. And the part that's not useful is saying, this is not okay. I'm bad for having this. Really, we're not guilty of our feelings. It's what we then tell ourselves about them or do with them, or whether we act them out. So that's the point of practice to me, going, okay, I do feel sad. I do feel sad about this. I do feel anxious about this. And then go, and now my choice is not to beat myself up, not to ruminate endlessly negatively forever, not to do something that's going to make me feel more agitated, not to try and drug it or shop it or eat it away. I'll just let myself for 1 minute go, this is anxious. This is what it feels like in my tummy. And now I stand in the sun. And it may be that eating chocolate is the right thing to do. Like, who says it isn't? But at least give yourself permission to respond to that. We're not a bad person for having feelings. We're human. And the teacher that I love working with, his name's Alexis Santos. I did a retreat with him here before COVID, and I worked with him, like he does day-longs online. And his teacher, who was a Burmese monk called Ajahn Tejaniya, one of the little tricks that I find useful is you don't keep saying, I, Brigid. You go, this is human. Like, as soon as you go, oh, this is Josh's anger, this is Brigid's anxiety, you've had that, basically not that helpful. If you go, a human feeling, love, sorrow, anger.
And that
it's just human. Don't claim it. Don't claim it. It's mine. I got to do something with it. I'm bad for having it. You just go, this is human. You just say, this is nature. It is nature. It comes and it goes. We think that it's ours, but it isn't. It's like a rainstorm or a sun.
It passes through. Yeah,
it passes through, and it doesn't belong to us. And we don't need to make a big story about us. We just go, human. This is human. Why wouldn't you feel this if you see Myanmar? What, your lover leaves you. Of course you will feel this. You had a shit childhood. There will be traces of anxiety in you, but it's not like, and now I have to go on and on about it and it's mine. How many thousands of people, millions of people feel anxious, feel sad, feel brokenhearted, feel joyous, feel lusty. It's part of the human weather, and that just sort of eases it up quite a bit.
I like that. It diffuses the whole thing and just allows you to stand down and just. I wanted. There's a passage in the book that really resonated with me. Oh, the whole thing resonated, but I'm going to do something rare. I've never read from anyone's book before, Brigid. So
there you go. Well, what an honor.
It's the one on friendship, and we all everywhere you see memes on Facebook about don't hang around people who don't suit you anymore, let go of toxic friendships. But that's something that it can be quite hard for a lot of people, because you've invested, like if they're a long time friend, you've known them for 20, 30, 40 years, that I've invested in this and I shouldn't, and I'll feel guilty if I need to end it, even though it's not doing me any good. And you say in here, having known each other for a long time is not enough. A friendship needs to have current common ground, be a meeting of minds, and feel safe. Now that blew me away, because that's like, because how many times you've been friends with someone for so many years, and you just keep on going just for the sake that you've been friends, and it no longer fills you up. You're not filling them up, they're not filling you up, but there's something happening, and that makes me feel a lot better about friendships that I've had to let go of, and I've been racked with guilt ever since, because it didn't go well, if you know what I mean.
And permission to like something I found is you don't necessarily have to tell them. You don't necessarily have to break up. You don't necessarily.
Sometimes people don't get the point.
No, sometimes they don't. But the first step to me, because I've had to do it with something recently, is just for me to back off in my own heart and mind. For me to realize I'm getting really entangled with this, and I don't want to. And forget about what they want and need. This is actually, I'm not going to go there. And that's a steady position. And then you might just see the person less or not spend as much time with them. And as you say, sometimes you have to, I have a very, very old friend, and we've been through like so many different things together, and we're probably both fairly troubled soul, and there's a bit of addiction in the picture, etc. And over the years, we've broken up, and then that feels terrible. And then we've patched it up, and we've sworn that we'll never break up again. And I've just realized with this person, it's so complicated. She doesn't live here in Australia, but we're going to go to the grave with a complicated relationship. And I love it a bit. And she triggers me like mad. And in that one, I don't want to break up with her. And interestingly, she's not in the least bit Buddhist, not in the least bit interested, thinks it's all a load of bullshit. And often would say to me, oh, not your Oprah stuff, like, yes. But when I sent her the thing on friendship, she did not, because she told me she'd just broken up with 2 friends. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I sent her that essay, which I rarely do. She never responded. And it's just interesting, like what the other person thinks and feels. But to me, it's, you get steady in your own mind. And sometimes if you break up with someone and they're really angry, that belongs to them. That totally.
You mentioned that.
Paul used to say, let them get on with it. Like, let them get on with it. I know I did the right thing. You want to be an angry shithead? Feel free.
Sometimes it can be as simple as that, really. But it's this overthinking things that comes into place, and putting that in perspective. And I think that's what this book is about. Do you feel that you have come to a better place after writing this book?
Well, funny that you said reading it. On my worst days, I get up and
writing it.
I go, she knows a lot. Yeah, because no, I think I don't know quite what the answer is here. I think it's a good little book, and I think the best of me's gone into it. So seriously, some days when I'm feeling wobbly, I do open it and I go, wow, you do know stuff. We have to remind ourselves we do know stuff. And also, as I said before, it's a lifetime journey. Like if I thought I'm not going to learn any more stuff, that would make me very sad. We've never completely got the answer. We've never got it all nailed. And
I don't think you'd ever want to, would you? Life would become boring then, wouldn't it?
No. And then things will present themselves, will keep on presenting themselves. Pema Chodron says that. It's sort of like, I can't remember her wording, but that thing will keep on happening for you until you get it sorted. Yeah. So I feel that's interesting. If one of my, if you come from an alcoholic family, you are a codep and you're always worrying about other people and what you should do for other people. And we're not even that good at knowing what we need and feel. And so that's going to be a lifetime of going, okay, what do I need and feel? What's the right thing? Forget what you think I should do. Forget what X's needs of me might be. I start with what I'm on about. And from there, I can give generously to the world. And whatever I offer will be really an honest and beautiful thing.
Because it's coming from a genuine place where you are not just giving from an empty vessel. And that's... Yeah. And that,
or out of obligation.
Yeah, out of obligation.
That can... My Zen teacher said that can really leak out. If you do things for the wrong reason and you bend yourself out of shape for others when you didn't really want to, there's always a price to that, isn't there? That always somehow.
I know. I mean, I still do a fair bit do that out of obligation, just through sheer circumstances of upbringing and stuff like that. But it is this suddenly giving yourself permission to bring yourself back into yourself. And I think that's one of the loving kindness things that I've taken away from your book is bring yourself back to yourself, as opposed to just trying to keep pleasing everyone, doing everything for everyone else. bring it. What do you like doing? What's going to fill you up? And it's the smallest, the most mundane. It's the cooking. It's the going for a walk. It's the walking around the lake. It's one thing I'm surprised you didn't mention in the book, I don't think, music.
Yes. Well, I love music. It's sort of interesting for me. I get earworms really easily. So if I listen to too much music, there's a lot of music in me.
Okay.
And therefore I don't listen to a lot of music, but I do listen to music, but I have to be quite selective.
Yep.
I think that's part of being a writer, and also part of getting overstimulated. Because like I have a friend, she's always got the radio on, and people always tell me, listen to this on the radio, and I'm like, I can't do that. It actually makes me a bit more crazier. And also certain music, certain music works for me and other music doesn't.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Look, Brigid, I'm going to wrap it up, but one last question. What lights you up?
It's going to be cheesy. My granddaughters.
I love it. Yeah. I love it, because you talk about your granddaughters in the book, and you can feel the joy coming from you when you write about them, especially just holding the hand, going for a walk, and it's the pure innocence of a child, the way they view life, and
also the fun. If we didn't have a happy childhood, when you're a grandparent, you get to have the happy childhood. You get to have fun and be silly and dress up and make things and have fairy bread. And so just them and family and the Dharma and living in such a privileged, we're so privileged. We should kiss the ground every day. We have food and medicine. So it's so much to be happy about, so much to be thankful for. And just there are many, many blessings, and talking to you has been one of them.
Look, and talking to you has been absolutely wonderful too, Brigid. So a year of loving kindness to myself and other essays, out by Fremantle Press. Thank you so much. Where can if people want to get in contact you or anything, which is the best way?
Well, I'm inkybuddha@gmail.com. That's inkybuddha@gmail.com. And I do run writing classes, or I do have a Facebook page, and I'll be at the Margaret River Writers Festival, and get in touch and buy the book.
Through Fremantle Press. Thank you very much, Brigid.
Bye now.
What are we gonna do with all this time?